5 ways to celebrate New Year's Eve in New York City without going to Times Square. Hi, I'm Megan Marad, a licensed New York City tour guide, and today I am going to tell you how to ring in the new year in New York City and never set foot in the crazy crowds of Times Square. If you are interested in Times Square on New Year's Eve, I have an entire video about that. I also have a guide on my website, themegandaily.com, that includes a checklist of items that you want to bring and not bring if you are celebrating New Year's Eve in Times Square. But today, we are going to talk about how to celebrate ringing in the new year and avoid all of that craziness. But first, make sure that you hit subscribe so you never miss a New York Minute.
Yeah, muffin talk. Ooh, muffin talk. Muffin talks, bringing healing to those who need them most.
Let's talk about 5 different ways that you can enjoy New Year's Eve in New York City without going to Times Square. Option 1, Central Park. This is probably the healthiest way to ring in the new year. Every year, the New York Road Runners organizes a 4-mile run in Central Park. You do have to register to be part of the official run. To register, go to NYRR.org. I'll put that website in the comments. The last I checked, to enter, it costs $70 to officially be part of this 4-mile run. The run starts at the 72nd Street Traverse in Central Park. So that's right in the middle of the park. To get there, you want to enter either from Central Park West at 72nd Street, and then you walk east about halfway through the park to where you start to see Bethesda Terrace. Or if you're entering from the east side on 5th Avenue, I personally like to use the 76th Street entrance because that takes me past the statue of Alice in Wonderland and is just really picturesque. It's equidistant whether or not you enter from Central Park West or 5th Avenue. If you are like me and you hate running, that's okay. You can still be part of these festivities. The race officially starts at 11:59 p.m. on December 31st. There's a huge firework display, so you can enjoy the fireworks whether or not you are running in the actual race. You can always cheer on the runners as well. This is an alcohol-free event. So they have sparkling, non-alcoholic apple cider at the halfway point for runners. If you are coming to New York City, do know that it is illegal to have open containers of alcohol out on the street or in the park in New York City. So you're gonna wanna leave that bubbly at home, and after you've run the race or cheered on people running the race, you can then pop the champagne and celebrate the brand new year. Option 2, a New York City Harbour Cruise. Fun fact, I was a tour guide out on tour boats for about 7 years, and I can tell you that nothing beats the New York City skyline as seen from a boat. So any time of year, I love to do this. On New Year's Eve, while you're out on the boat, you can actually have a chance of seeing fireworks set off from various points in New York City and New Jersey at midnight. So that's a great way of seeing New Year's Eve fireworks. Now, there are countless tours that are offered on New Year's Eve. So I would say actually use the Google and find one that fits your vibe. There will be party boats, there will be classy dinner boats, there will be boats that have more of an educational tourism aspect to it. There's even a boat that has 2 hot tubs on board, and you can rent a hot tub or 2 hot tubs for your whole party and ring in the new year in front of the Statue of Liberty in a hot tub, which kind of sounds like a dream to me. So just kind of check, see which cruise fits your vibe and fits your price point. I have taken tours on almost every boat in the harbor, and I've actually enjoyed every single one. So the great news is you can't go wrong on a cruise. Option 3, Prospect Park in Brooklyn. If you want to celebrate New Year's Eve the way that local New Yorkers do, you don't want to go anywhere near Times Square. It is so bonkers crowded. So a lot of locals will instead go out to Prospect Park in Brooklyn. If you go to the Grand Army Plaza entrance, there's a New Year's Eve party that's much more chill and much more laid back than the one in Times Square. And at midnight, you will be treated to a 15-minute firework display. So that is a great option if you are looking for a local chill vibe. Option 4, the Brooklyn Bridge. I asked my tour guide colleagues what their favorite non-Times Square New York City New Year's Eve tradition was, and the #1 response that came back was the Brooklyn Bridge. A lot of my colleagues even make a point of every year leading a tour across the Brooklyn Bridge that will be just about in the middle of the bridge at exactly midnight. If you are interested in a tour or a private tour that meets the vibe of your group, feel free to email me. I will put my email in the comments below and I will hook you up with an awesome guide or tour experience that meets the vibe of your group. One of the best things about crossing over the Brooklyn Bridge on New Year's Eve is that you can see fireworks from different locations of New York City and New Jersey. I love fireworks, so that's always super fun. You can also see a lot of really iconic New York City buildings. The Empire State Building, One Vanderbilt, the Chrysler Building, One World Trade Center, and the Statue of Liberty as you cross the Brooklyn Bridge. The Brooklyn Bridge also has a lot of interesting history, and some of it is actually directly connected to New Year's. Namely, on January 1st, 1898, what we know today as the 5 boroughs of New York City, Manhattan, Brooklyn, Queens, the Bronx, and Staten Island, all joined together to create New York City as we know it today, a city made up of those 5 boroughs. Option 5, try a bucket list New York City restaurant. This is actually what I usually do on New Year's Eve. New York City is full of incredible restaurants, and they're at all different price points. There's places like Per Se that have a prefix menu. I think it's currently $350 per person, adult beverages not included in that price. And then we also have dollar dumplings in Chinatown. On New Year's Eve, I like to choose one of the crazy high-end restaurants that I wouldn't normally be willing to spend that much money on for a meal, but since it's New Year's Eve, it's special, so I decide to ring in the new year with deliciousness. Some of the restaurants that I would have on my bucket list: Per Se, Bar Masa, 11 Madison Park. 11 Madison Park, by the way, went all plant-based. So if you're a vegetarian or a vegan, that is a great option for you. And I also have Le Bernardin on my bucket list. If you're looking for something that's a little less crazy expensive than those restaurants, up in my neighborhood of Harlem, there is a restaurant called The Grange. It is so delicious. I strongly recommend it. Also in Harlem, there is the Red Rooster, which is Marcus Samuelson's restaurant. Strongly recommend. And then on the other side of the island, way down south, there is Francis Tavern. Francis Tavern has a really interesting New York City history. It's where George Washington gave his farewell address to his troops right before he went off to become the president, or the very first president of the constitutional United States. So there's a little museum inside of Francis Tavern as well, and they have awesome food. I've gone there with my fiance several times on holidays, and we've always been so overjoyed. It's wonderful. And then if you wanted to give yourself a bit of a free boat cruise, you can hop on the Staten Island Ferry, which is basically across the street from Francis Tavern, and ride the Staten Island Ferry back and forth from Manhattan to Staten Island. You'll get a great view of the Statue of Liberty, and if you time it right to be around midnight, you might get to see some fireworks as well. Option 5.5, This is sort of a continuation of going to one of our incredible restaurants, and that's to go to one of our incredible bars. New York City has so many bars. A lot of visitors just like to walk down a street such as Bleecker Street in Greenwich Village and find a bar that meets their vibe and their taste and hop in there and spend New Year's Eve there. There's also a lot of places such as Cafe Wha, that's W-H-A question mark, that have live music in Greenwich Village that you can explore. So you can just do that, have a really fun local New York City experience. I also love to go to speakeasies. New York City has quite a good number of speakeasies, and a lot of them are really authentic. If you look just from the outside, one of them called Bathtub Gin looks like a bread company. And the first time I went, I was like, why am I standing outside of this bread company? And they open up like a secret door and there's a speakeasy there. So we have Bathtub Gin, there's Attaboy. Attaboy doesn't have a menu. You just tell the bartender what you like and they create a drink for you on the spot, and it's always fabulous. There's Please Don't Tell, there's Employees Only. You can always go on Google and Google speakeasies in New York City, and so many of them will come up and they'll tell you how to find them, so you don't end up like me, standing in a bread shop wondering why you can't find your speakeasy. I also really enjoy seeing burlesque shows in New York City. A lot of Broadway performers, a lot of opera performers, a lot of dancers and classically trained ballerinas, and a lot of aerialists do burlesque as a sort of side hustle. It's a way of them letting their creativity fly free because you create your own acts. It's really, really special. I have so many favorite burlesque clubs in New York City. One of my favorites is called Duane Park. Duane Park is a very upscale experience. You get a multi-course dinner with this amazing burlesque show that has some of the most incredible aerialists and dancers and singers and a live band that you will find in all of New York City. And they have a special New Year's Eve toast planned. There is a burlesque club out in Bushwick, Brooklyn called Company XIV. It's actually less of a club and more of an entire theatrical experience. Company XIV gets its name from Louis XIV, so you sort of feel transported back in time, and you will have aerialists that sing opera at the same time. You will have dancers from the Metropolitan Opera performing for you. It's really, really spectacular, and they create an amazing ambiance, and they have amazing New Year's Eve plans as well. So those are great options for you if you're looking for something a little more scandalous than going to one of our super high-end restaurants. I hope that this video helped you make your New Year's Eve plans, give you some ideas of things that you can do that are an alternative to Times Square. If you enjoyed this video, make sure that you hit subscribe. I have tons of videos about New York City and how to have your very best New York City experience. When I'm making these videos, I'm drawing on my more than a decade of experience working as a New York City tour guide and interacting with guests, getting feedback from guests about what they loved, what they didn't love so much, what confused them, and what created the most amazing memories. So now I am loving creating videos to help even more people have their very best New York City experience. Thank you so much for watching and have a very happy New Year.